My name is Simone, and I need you to understand something before I tell you this story. I am not a woman who holds grudges. I hold receipts. There is a difference. A grudge sits in your chest and makes you bitter. A receipt sits in a folder on your desktop and waits, sometimes for 7 years. And when the moment comes, you don't even have to be angry. You just have to be ready. I met Lauren Carver on move-in day at Georgia Tech, freshman year. She was from Charlotte, private school, sorority-bound, the kind of girl who walked into a dorm room and immediately started rearranging the furniture like she'd been living there for years. I was from Decatur, public school, first-generation college student with a scholarship that covered tuition but not much else. We were never going to be best friends, but we were roommates, and for 4 years that was enough. Lauren was smart, not brilliant, not in the way that makes professors stop and pay attention, but smart in the way that recognizes where the shortcuts are. She knew which classes had group projects instead of exams. She knew which TAs graded easy. She knew how to get what she needed without earning it the long way. I didn't judge her for it. It wasn't my business. Lord knows I had enough of my own work to do. Senior year, I was in the honors program for marketing and consumer behavior. My thesis was due in December, a semester-long research project on emerging consumer markets in the Southeast, specifically looking at how demographic shifts in Atlanta were reshaping retail and brand loyalty. I had spent 4 months on it: surveys, focus groups, regression analyses, dozens of interviews with local business owners. I had a spreadsheet with 17 tabs and a bibliography with 83 sources. I knew that paper the way some people know a favorite song: every measure, every pause, every word committed to memory. Lauren was also a marketing major. She had a senior thesis due too. Hers was on, I don't know, something about influencer marketing. Something I never read because she never offered to show me and I never asked. But she asked to read mine. She said she wanted to see what an honors thesis looked like. She said she was struggling with her own structure. She said she just needed an example. And I, being 21 years old and still operating under the assumption that people are mostly honest, I handed it over. I want you to hold on to that moment. The moment I handed over 83 sources and 17 tabs of original research to a woman who had spent 4 years learning where the shortcuts were. Because everything that happened 7 years later started right there, in a dorm room, with a Word document, and my name on the title page. I graduated in December. Honors. Lauren graduated in May. I moved to Chicago for a research fellowship at a market analytics firm, a 2-year program that was supposed to open doors, and it did. Lauren moved to New York. We exchanged maybe 3 texts total after graduation, the polite kind, the congrats on the new job kind, the we should grab coffee if I'm ever in your city kind. You know the ones I mean. 7 years passed. I worked in Chicago, then Dallas, then back to Atlanta. I built a reputation. Not a loud one. I was never going to be the person giving keynotes or posting on LinkedIn every Tuesday, but the kind of reputation that matters in my industry. I was the person you called when you had data you couldn't make sense of. I was the person who could take 17 tabs of raw numbers and turn them into a narrative that a boardroom could understand. The company was called Brightmark Insights, market research firm headquartered in Midtown Atlanta, about 300 employees across 4 offices. I was hired as a senior analyst. Good salary, good team, the kind of job that makes you feel like everything you did in your 20s finally added up to something. My first day was in January, and I had no idea, none, that Lauren Carver had been working there for almost a year. Here is the thing about Atlanta. It's a big city that acts like a small town. The corporate sector is tight. Everybody knows somebody. And yet, somehow, in 300 employees, in a building I walked through every single day, Lauren and I never crossed paths for 4 months. Not in the elevator, not in the cafeteria, not in a single meeting. Until the email. It was a Tuesday afternoon in March. I was at my desk reviewing a segmentation analysis for a hospitality client when my email notification went off. Company-wide message from Lauren Carver. The name made me pause. I hadn't thought about Lauren in years, but I kept reading. The subject line was Proprietary Research Initiative, Emerging Consumer Behavior Patterns in Southeastern Markets. I opened the email. It was addressed to the entire company, all 300 employees, plus the executive leadership team and the board. Lauren had been promoted 6 months earlier to a strategy role, and this was her big moment. The email talked about a comprehensive research initiative she had personally developed, an in-depth market analysis based on months of independent study, a proprietary framework for understanding shifts in consumer loyalty across the Southeast. The CEO had already replied. I could see it in the thread. One line, "This is exceptional work, Lauren. Let's discuss this at the leadership retreat." I scrolled. I opened the attached document, a 47-page PDF with charts, graphs, demographic breakdowns, regression tables, and I started reading my own words. Not similar words, not the same ideas, my words, my sentences, my transitions, my structure, my 17 tabs of data, updated with more recent numbers, but the architecture was mine. You know how you can recognize your own handwriting even if you haven't seen it in years? That's what this was. Except it wasn't handwriting. It was thinking. My thinking. The way I organized an argument. The way I moved from hypothesis to methodology to finding to implication. The way I structured a paragraph so the third sentence set up the fifth sentence in a way that felt inevitable. She didn't just steal my research. She stole the way my brain works. I want to read you something. This is from page 12 of Lauren's document. The primary friction point in Southeastern consumer retention is not price sensitivity, contrary to legacy assumptions, but rather relational continuity. Consumers in the metro hubs of Atlanta, Birmingham, and Charlotte demonstrate a loyalty pattern that correlates more strongly with community embeddedness than with traditional brand equity metrics. Now I'm going to read you what I wrote. Senior year, Georgia Tech, December. Page 26 of my thesis. The central friction in Southeastern consumer retention patterns is not price sensitivity, as traditional models would predict, but rather what I term relational continuity. Consumers in the metro hubs of Atlanta, Birmingham, and Charlotte exhibit loyalty patterns that correlate more closely with the brand's community embeddedness than with conventional brand equity indicators. She changed 7 words. 7. She swapped central for primary. She changed what I term to nothing because she couldn't use my voice. She changed as traditional models would predict to contrary to legacy assumptions. She changed conventional indicators to traditional metrics. 7 words in a 47-page document. That is what manipulation looks like at the intellectual level, not a theft you can see, not a crime you can report to HR with the clean before and after, a theft that lives in the seam between similar research and stolen work. She didn't copy-paste, she edited, lightly, just enough to make it hard to prove. But I didn't need to prove it in a courtroom. I just needed to prove it to 300 people on a Tuesday afternoon. I sat at my desk for 2 hours. I didn't forward the email. I didn't call Lauren. I didn't walk over to her office. I did what I am best at. I opened a new document. I opened my old thesis, still saved on my hard drive, still in a folder called Senior Year, still with my name on the title page where Lauren had stripped it off. And I started building a case. I went through the document page by page. I identified 31 passages where Lauren's text matched my original thesis, not in concept, not in topic, but in structure, phrasing, and architecture. I documented every instance. Page number, side-by-side comparison, date of my original research, date of her email. I highlighted the regression tables that used my survey methodology with updated numbers. I highlighted the demographic breakdowns that followed my framework exactly. I highlighted the bibliography. 31 of the 83 sources in her document were the same sources I had used in the same citation order. And then I wrote my reply. Now, here is where I need you to understand something about me. I did not write that reply because I was angry. Anger would have made it emotional. Anger would have made it messy. I wrote it because I owed it to the 21-year-old version of myself who had sat in that library at 2 a.m. with 17 tabs of data and 83 sources, building something original with her own 2 hands. She didn't know someone was going to steal her work 7 years later, but she deserved someone who would defend it, and that someone was me. I hit reply all. Not reply to Lauren, not forward to HR, not a private message to the CEO, reply all. Every single person who had received her email, all 300 employees, the executive team, the full board. Because here's the thing about plagiarism in a professional setting. It only works if the original author stays quiet. It only works if nobody checks. It only works in the dark. And I was about to turn on every light in the building. I wrote, "Dear Lauren, congratulations on this impressive research document. I found it particularly compelling because I wrote the original version of this thesis in December 2016 at Georgia Tech as part of my honors program in marketing and consumer behavior. I have attached the full original document for comparison. I have also identified 31 specific passages where phrasing, structure, and analysis match my original work. They are annotated here. I am confident this is an oversight in attribution, rather than an intentional misrepresentation. I look forward to your clarification. Best, Simone." That word, oversight, was a gift. It was the exit ramp I gave her. She could have taken it. She could have replied and said, "You're right, Simone. I was heavily influenced by your research and I should have credited you." She could have apologized. She could have saved herself. She didn't. Here's the thing about the reply all button. It is not a weapon. It is a window. It lets light into a room that someone has been keeping dark. Lauren had been keeping her work, my work, in the dark for 7 years. I didn't destroy her. I didn't report her to HR. I didn't demand she be fired. I just turned on the light. And when you turn on the light, people can see. And when people can see, they make their own judgments. I trusted my colleagues to do exactly that. The fallout was quiet. That's the thing about professional revenge. It doesn't explode. It settles, like dust after a demolition. You don't hear the building come down. You just notice the next morning that the skyline looks different. Within 2 hours, the CEO's office had requested a meeting with Lauren. Within a day, the document had been pulled from the internal server. Within a week, Lauren had resigned, officially to pursue other opportunities. Unofficially, she had been asked to leave after an internal review confirmed what my annotated document had already proven. Lauren never replied to my email. Not to me, not to the company. She just disappeared, left her office, cleared out her desk. Unanswered. I have not spoken to her since. The CEO's office reached out to me privately. They thanked me for handling it professionally. They said they appreciated that I hadn't escalated to legal. They asked if I wanted to take over the research initiative that Lauren had been leading. I said yes, not because I needed the project, because I wanted the research I had started at 2 a.m. in a college library to finally have my name on it, in the place where it belonged, at the company where I worked, with the recognition I had earned 7 years earlier. And here's the thing I think about sometimes. Lauren didn't steal my research because she was evil. She stole it because she was afraid. She had spent 4 years at Georgia Tech finding shortcuts, and when she got to a point in her career where she needed to deliver something real, something original, she didn't have the muscle for it. She had never built it. So she reached backward, 7 years, to a dorm room, to a document I had handed over because I thought she just needed an example. The lesson is not don't trust people. The lesson is be the kind of professional who can back up your work with receipts, because the day may come when someone tries to claim it. And when that day comes, you won't need to scream. You won't need to file a report. You'll just need to reply all. If you made it to the end of this, thank you. What was the moment in this story that hit you the hardest? Was it when I opened the attachment and recognized my own words? Was it the 7 words she changed? Was it the reply all button and the word oversight? Drop it below. I read every single one. Subscribe to Karma Delivered. Every story on this channel is true in the ways that matter. And Karma, she always, always finds her way. I'll see you next week. Stay solid. That's enough karma for me.